This is CBC Vancouver News.
This year in particular, I have been avoiding this exact area where the incident happened.
Tonight on CBC Vancouver News, after this year's treacherous avalanche season claims more lives, new warnings arrive. And 5 years later, family members celebrate his legacy and remember a 20-year-old who vanished in Kamloops. Also,
I'm really just putting this story out to the world because I want it to be a good one.
a new chapter in Bella Bella, where a Hatzig family prepares for the first birth in the remote community in 2 decades. Good evening, I'm Zahra Premji. Thanks for joining us. Dan is away tonight. It's been another deadly week in avalanche country, and new warnings are now coming out. This after 2 people died near Golden after being fully buried under snow. This now brings the total number of avalanche deaths in the province this year to 9. Our Lindsay Duncombe looks at the dangerous conditions behind the growing number of fatalities.
Conditions in BC's backcountry haven't been this dangerous in 2 decades. The latest deadly avalanche happened near this slope, known as Terminator 2.5, just out of bounds of Kicking Horse Resort. 2 people died, buried in a wall of snow as wide as a football field.
If you're caught in a really big one, it's going to feel like you're like in a washing machine. It's going to be like you lose perception of where is up and down.
Michel Beauchemin survived avalanches before. He knows that backcountry well.
This year in particular, I have been avoiding this exact area where the incident happened. We're talking about really big avalanche paths, very steep terrain.
The avalanche happened here near the Alberta border. So far, there have been 5 fatal slides on BC mountains this year. 9 people killed. Just last weekend, 2 skiers died here on Potato Peak. Here's why it's so dangerous. Back in the late fall, it was very cold and snowfall was light, creating a layer of sugary, loose snow. When heavy snow piles on top, the whole snowpack becomes unstable.
We're seeing incident after incident released on these deep, lower layers. They're very hard for people to properly assess. And when we do get avalanches, they're extremely large.
These kind of conditions won't go away until the spring melt. As tempting as those steep slopes may be, even experienced people in the backcountry are warned to be especially careful and consider staying in bounds. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
This weekend marks 5 years since the disappearance of 20-year-old Ryan Stuka. He vanished from the ski resort where he worked near Kamloops, and his family is keeping his legacy alive by helping others going through loss.
It has gone beyond the scope of just him personally, that our purpose is to help other families navigating through this loss, and that through his name, I think we have done some good things.
His parents, who live in Alberta, are at the resort this weekend, and they took part in today's memorial run for Ryan. He was last seen leaving a house party at Sun Peaks on February 17th. That's in 2018. Police and volunteers have extensively searched for him. Heather Stuka will be signing copies of her book, Missing from Me, in Kamloops tomorrow and Sunday in Sun Peaks. Well, Vancouver City Council has voted against implementing recommendations made through the Climate Justice Charter. Now, that charter is seen as a guide for city staff when they're making climate-related decisions. As Janella Hamilton reports, those who spent hundreds of hours to create the charter believe Council is backing down on its commitments.
For more than 2 years, Navdeep China and 15 other community members worked together to create Vancouver's Climate Justice Charter.
It was very emotional work because you were sharing something that is very personal to you.
A document filled with lived experiences on how climate change is impacting marginalized communities and biodiversity.
We live in a city where we see on a daily basis the impact on marginalized people. The charter said, let's do things in an equitable way, that people who are facing the biggest burden are not the one who are paying the biggest price as well.
Earlier this week, a motion was brought forward to City Council to implement the charter. It was rejected by the majority ABC Vancouver Council.
The work that was prepared for us is something that we can use as one of many tools, but the fact is that we can't tell staff how to do their job.
But those who worked on it say the document is a loose framework that ensures reconciliation and equity play a meaningful role in policy decisions.
These are considerations that aren't often brought into City Hall decisions. That is going to be missed.
Klassen says the city already has a chief equity officer and an existing equity framework strategy. In the charter, the group asks for annual progress reports to hold the city accountable.
If you don't have roles for accountability and tracking, it's toothless. It's ineffective.
This all comes after a recent report from city planners showed there's a funding gap of about $230 million for the city to meet its climate targets. And the city is only 7% below 2007 emission rates.
What we need from the council right now are not steps back, but rather be more bold, be more visionary.
Klassen says creating an equitable climate emergency action plan is still top priority. Through infrastructure improvements and changes to new construction projects, he believes the city will be able to cut greenhouse emissions by 50% by 2030. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Frustrations over soaring price hikes for ingredients are mounting for many small businesses. In Vancouver, a number of bakeries have been vocal about just how expensive many items are becoming. As John Hernandez reports, inflation isn't solely to blame for the rising costs.
The expenses across the board are up, so that means margins are shrinking.
Long lineups are a welcomed sight for Shauna McNeil.
Fortunately for us, our sales are good. They're steady, which means people continue to support our small business.
Each sale helps the owner at Trafic on Main Street keep their menu prices down, even though the cost of ingredients just keeps getting higher.
A block of butter a couple of years ago cost just under $200, and now it's up over $300.
They hope to hold off on price hikes through the rest of the year, a task that will prove challenging here and for many other bakeries like it.
We want to make sure that our customers are at least affected. We are riding out that storm.
Master pastry chef Thomas Haas has been keeping close tabs on his bills. He's even taken to social media to point out some of the glaring price increases that are much higher than Canada's inflation rate.
We have seen the increases not like what our government says. We have an inflation of 6%, but 20%, 25%, 30, 35, up to 71%. And it goes right through everything from chocolates to fruit.
Experts say the surging food prices can likely be traced to the major players in the supply chain.
You have wholesalers and retailers and big food manufacturers, and it seems like they're all taking, maybe a bigger slice of the pie than they have in the past.
A trend that has these business owners calling for corporate transparency.
We want to see more of those big companies being responsible.
Corporations are having more and more power, and there is less and less corporations who are competing against each other.
Experts say reining in inflation likely won't bring prices down, but could keep suppliers from raising them even more. A move that could hopefully keep businesses and their customers from eating even more costs. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Families will soon have access to more midwives in BC. UBC has more than double the number of seats in its midwifery program thanks to new provincial funding.
The role of midwives really does go beyond the delivery, the pinnacle moment. It really is about the aftercare, and making sure that we are adjusting. Women and those giving birth are adjusting to the change in their lives.
The province announced $1.7 million for the expansion, which will see UBC add 20 new seats to the program, bringing the total capacity to 48 students a year. The midwife program also supports Indigenous students by incorporating cultural learning experiences and mentorship from Indigenous midwives and elders. Now, a Hadsick woman is preparing for a birth in Bella Bella, an island off central coast of BC. It will be the first time in more than 2 decades that a person has given birth in the remote community. Her family is thrilled about setting a precedent, but as Angela Sterritt reports, some medical professionals were apprehensive.
Before her baby was even conceived, Gatuwas knew she wanted to give birth in her Hadsick community of Bella Bella.
It's really special to be out here on the land where my ancestors used to birth and to feel the energy.
She and her partner Stephen are getting ready for their first baby to be born at the Kunsuit Wellness Center. It's on an island east of Bella Bella, about 15 minutes by boat.
Since I was a little girl, I was taught that our women would go into the agayache, into the forest, and they would birth their babies against old growth cedar so that their children would be rooted as deep as old growth cedar.
But not everyone shared her enthusiasm.
It was more in regards to fear and how, when it comes back down to it, nobody wanted our baby to be hurt or me to be hurt in the birthing process.
She says doctors discouraged her and pressed her to give birth at the hospital rather than at home.
On one prenatal appointment, told that I would be making the wrong decision for myself and for my unborn child, and that it was basically bad parenting.
So her grandmother, 80-year-old Margaret Brown, stepped in to support her.
She's like, I birthed all 6 of my children in Bella Bella.
The hesitancy comes with the reality that it will be the first birth in Bella Bella in 21 years.
Previously, there had been smaller maternity services in rural and remote communities, usually staffed by internationally trained nurse midwives or by GPs that had surgical training.
But many of them closed about 20 years ago.
But the consequence, again, for families was having to be evacuated. For pregnancy, that means that for that 6 weeks around your birth and the postpartum period, you have to leave your community and go and stay in an unfamiliar city, often being separated from your older children or from your partner.
It's something that can be traumatic for families, not just to leave their family behind, but to enter a space where Indigenous people don't always feel safe.
For Indigenous people who access healthcare, that so often they encounter racism.
Gatuwas and her partner want to ensure their baby is brought into the world knowing who they are.
One thing that I always think about is about reclaiming a lot of the ways that have been taken away from us through colonization.
Being in the community means their baby will hear their Hadsick language in utero. With only a handful of speakers left, the significance is not lost on her.
That's a right that was taken away from us through residential school, and I'm really blessed to have my gagam, my grandmother, who takes the time to teach me.
Gatuwas is being supported by a team of 5 midwives and her doula.
As an Indigenous birth worker and mother, I believe so wholeheartedly in their inherent right to birth their baby where they choose to, and especially in their ancestral homelands and in their territory.
But right now, there's no payment structure for many rural and remote Indigenous communities to bring in midwives. In a statement, BC's Ministry of Health said it's currently piloting alternative midwifery contracts to address maternity provider shortages at several rural and remote sites, including Hazelton, Haida Gwaii, Invermere, Salt Spring Island, and Port Hardy, but not yet in Bella Bella.
And I have faith that it's going to happen. I have faith, and that's a big thing for me to say as an Indigenous person, to have faith in systems that have constantly failed me.
She hopes her birth in her own territory can set a precedent for other Indigenous parents.
I'm really just putting this story out to the world because I want it to be a good one, and believe that Canada and BC will find it in their hearts to break the cycle of disconnecting Indigenous people.
Angela Sterritt, CBC News, Bella Bella.
An update for you now on the new hawk totem pole after it was removed from the Royal BC Museum earlier this week. It was the first step in the repatriation of the pole, which has left downtown Victoria and is on its way to Bella Coola by truck. Following 2 days of ceremony, the totem pole is being escorted back to New Hawk territory and is set to arrive on Monday. It was taken from a village on the Central Coast more than a century ago. A celebration is planned for when the totem pole returns to its home territory.
He's just a kid who lives in the neighborhood and wants to play basketball.
Coming up after the break, a high school ball team thought their season would be a slam dunk, but an off-court issue means no chance of playoffs. Stick around for that and more. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us during our commercial-free live stream. New Brunswick retirees are training to become lifeguards at their local aquatic center. The trio, who call themselves Grey Watch, just finished their Bronze Cross certification and say they did because of the national shortage of lifeguard professionals.
Help, help.
Well, what's happening here today is there are 3 of us are what you would call older people. We're going to be being tested for our Bronze Cross in an effort to become certified lifeguards.
You got him?
Yeah, we got him.
Okay.
It's pretty intense. Yeah. It really is. There are things that have pushed me, and I'm guessing pushed all of us this week to do things that we weren't sure if we could do.
Very challenging. Well, I never dove underwater like I have in the last week, and retrieving 10-pound bricks and mannequins that probably weigh about 40 pounds and bringing them up and swimming 20 meters with it and holding it above water. It's like very difficult.
No, here we go.
No, I retired when I was 58, and I'm 67 right now. And I started training for triathlons 4 years ago. I find coming here and training for this to dive down the deep end and is more intimidating than what I had to do in the St. Lawrence as far as I'm concerned.
No breathing. I'm going to continue the compressions. 30.
You know, the sky's the limit. Your body, look after it, and you can do anything, you know, if you're lucky enough to have good health. You know, I've been lucky enough to have good health, right? Certainly this encourages, puts you down the path to living a healthy lifestyle, and you can live longer and enjoy your life more.
And I'm going to continue this cycle 5 times in 2 minutes. Get down.
To be honest, I didn't really want to at first. You know, I don't want the responsibility. You're retired. Now, looking back on it, I'm glad I did. It's a sense of accomplishment. Everybody likes a challenge. It is challenging at our age, my age, to do that. The main thing now I'm finding out is such a good team environment here. The other lifeguards, they look up to you and really support you, and you know you're not alone.
Lifeguard, and you see the lifeguards, they have their tubes tied up.
Everything that we're doing and have done and will have to do to pass this course is the same thing that any 15, 16, 18-year-old has to do. There's no favoritism for us whatsoever. We have to do what they've had to do as well. You're only as old as you feel. David Miles has a t-shirt. I'm getting old, but I'm not old yet.
One high school basketball team's hoop dreams have turned into a nightmare. The Kitsilano Secondary School junior boys basketball team had a great season, but had to forfeit. To break the sports drama down, we're joined by Liam Britton. Now, Liam, what cost this team its season?
Well, sports drama is right. A rally was held today after BC School Sports ruled the team had an ineligible player transfer onto the team. That led the Vancouver Secondary School Athletics Association to kick Kits from the city-wide playoffs after what had been a fantastic campaign. The ineligible player played throughout the season, and the team's playoffs are now over. Kirsten Mikason is the mom of one player. She says her son and his teammates are devastated.
He said, I'm mad and sad, Mom, but as a mother, I could really also hear the defeat in his voice, and that was really hard to deal with.
And so, Liam, what makes this player ineligible now?
Well, there are rules, really well-established, widely accepted rules throughout North American high school sports about athletes switching schools. So, in a nutshell, if a kid plays a sport for their old school 12 months before they switch schools, they can't play that sport for 12 months after they switch. The idea is to disincentivize athletically motivated transfers. But the team's volunteer coach, Kenny McIntyre, says the inclusion of this player on the team was just an oversight.
We didn't recruit this kid. He moved to his catchment school. I didn't know him in October. He showed up in our gym. He plays on our team. He's not Michael Jordan. He's not Kobe Bryant. He's just a kid who lives in the neighborhood and wants to play basketball.
So it's really these kids who are paying the price, but who's actually responsible, Liam?
Well, parents and the athletes themselves are blaming administrators within the school district for this. They say the admins should have known about the ineligible player and not played him. We asked the school board for comment. They have said they have to follow the rules set by BC School Sports, but wouldn't comment on staff issues. As for the players, they're understandably upset.
It feels horrible, not for me, but like the whole team. Like, this is like our passion. Like, we just love playing basketball, and like they just got rid of it for us.
And the timing couldn't be worse. This forfeit means they've lost out on their shot to play in a province-wide best-on-best tournament. Zahra?
Thank you. That's the CBC's Liam Britton. All right, here is a beauty live shot of Georgia Street. Johanna will have your full forecast coming up next.
Dennis Hurley has been the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Durban for 36 years. He says people are better at spreading hate than love.
The barriers between one culture and another, one language and another, one people and another, one race and another. And God knows we of South Africa know that to the full, the bitterness of racial and national divisions.
The Archbishop has spoken out against apartheid, imprisonment of blacks, and torture in South Africa. In 1984, he was charged with making false statements concerning atrocities by the police in the African country of Namibia. He was later acquitted.
In my own country, possibly here, too, people say, that's not church work, that's politics. They're always telling us that in South Africa, as if politicians, and I wouldn't insult them to think this, as if politicians had no consciences whatsoever, and the task of evangelizing politicians was just impossible. Keep out of politics.
After the Archbishop's sermon, parishioners adopted a famine relief tune to express their concern for blacks in South Africa.
We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones to make a brighter day, so let's start giving.
Parishioners seemed to be moved by the sermon.
I believe that we should help everyone, and I certainly try to do that. And South Africa is one of many.
But we have so many problems here in our own country.
Our own country is very rich and very, very badly behaved.
People say the politicians know it all, that you must not talk politics in church. Where did our blessed Lord talk politics? Is in the temple.
You can't separate religion and politics. It's as simple as that.
I think the government does not want interference. I think this is they want to go ahead on their own way. They don't want interference, and they don't want to hear what might not be to their liking.
The Archbishop is in Canada for the next 2 weeks promoting social justice and Catholic projects in third world countries. Joni Marr, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. On March 8th, celebrate International Women's Day with Gloria Makarenko at the West Coast Leafs Equality Breakfast. Get your tickets at westcoastleaf.org. And dance away the winter blues with Corleone at Pop Capella 3 on March 3rd and 4th. Backed by a band of Vancouver's best, the Corleone Ensemble will take on your favorite hits. Tickets at corleone.org.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
I know the big question is, what's the weather outlook for the long weekend? So we have our resident meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe. Joe, give me the good stuff. I want a little bit of everything.
You do. I know you do, Zahra, and you're going to get it. There is something for everyone in the forecast this weekend. We're definitely going to get some weather across the South Coast. And actually, that's the story across the whole province. Take a look at the satellite and radar right now, and you can really see this movement of cloud and moisture from the northwest down across the southeast. This is the latest system in what is really a train of systems. We have 3 to get through over the long weekend. Each one will arrive in northwestern BC, tracking snow across the Prince George region and eventually down to the southeast, skimming the south coast with showers. Now, we are under that snowfall warning up towards Highway 97, Pine Pass, Williston, that's where you're looking at 10 to 20 centimeters overnight. Down towards Prince George and Quesnel, it's more like a 5-centimeter story. We are obviously watching avalanche conditions closely this weekend. They remain at considerable for those areas in orange. So for much of the province, we are still watching for those highly easily triggered avalanches without the usual warning signs that we get. And this fresh storm snow is going to continue to add to concerns over the week ahead. And you can take a look at those snowfall totals. The darker the blue, the higher the snowfall numbers. This is just through to early next week. Then we do get a break from the snow as we trade the precip for cold temperatures. But just watch these shots of snow. There's Saturday hitting the north coast, sliding down into Vancouver for Sunday, another one on tap for Monday. But it's not a complete washout. We'll see some sunshine tomorrow across the province before you get those flurries moving in. And here in Metro Vancouver, we may see some sun tomorrow afternoon. Sunday, those showers hold off until the back end of the day. Pretty steady rain Monday, so maybe hold your indoor activities off until that family day Monday, or just gear up, Zahra. That's what we do best. And get ready for cold and clear next week. It's happening.
I love it. You know I want that rain, so I'll take it. I'll just gear up. Thanks, Joe.
We will. You're welcome.
All right, we leave you tonight with an update on 2 harbor seals, both rescued from the wild this fall and now settling in at the Vancouver Aquarium. This is Skeena. The aquarium says she was found in August in South Surrey, swimming frantically in the Serpentine River. She was suffering from severe eye injuries that required intensive care. Her new roommate, Pim, was found in Souk in September, dehydrated with multiple wounds on her body.
And they are starting to get used to their new environment. They are both fully blind, one is partially blind, so they're really reliant on their vibrissae or their mustache to kind of feel vibrations in the water and discover their new habitat by just skimming along the walls. So it's been a really fun time kind of introducing them to new toys and their new environment.
The Vancouver Aquarium says because of the severity of their injuries, the seals have been deemed non-releasable by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, which means the aquarium is their new forever home. All right, maybe we should go visit them. And that's your late news for this Friday, but you know what I'm going to say. Before you let that head hit the pillow, take one last scroll through what else is making headlines. Head over to cbc.ca/BC, and I hope you have a wonderful long weekend if you have one, and if you don't, I'm with you. Have a good night.